I wanted to tell a more personal story that might inspire young people considering a life of public service. How my career in politics really started with a search for a place to fit in, a way to explain the different strands of my mixed-up heritage, and how it was only by hitching my wagon to something larger than myself that I was ultimately able to locate a community and purpose for my life.
The former President of the United States of America, Barack Obama, yesterday released his new memoir called A Promised Land, and I'm interested to know what inspired you, Mr. President, to write this memoir.
Maybe most of all, I want to give young people hopefully some inspiration, some sense of how I, as a young man, was able to translate a whole bunch of issues that I had into working on things that were larger than myself.
Barack Obama's new book, A Promised Land, has sold nearly 890,000 copies in the US and Canada in its first 24 hours, putting it on track to become the best-selling presidential memoir in our modern history. The first-day sales, which set a record for Penguin Random House, includes pre-orders, ebooks, and audio. "We are thrilled with the first-day sales," said David Drake, a publisher of the Penguin Random House imprint Crown. "They reflect the widespread excitement that readers have for President Obama's highly anticipated and extraordinarily written book." The only book by a former White House resident to come close to that sales figure was Michelle Obama's own memoir, Becoming, which sold 725,000 copies in North America its first day and has topped 10 million worldwide since its release in 2018. As of midday Wednesday, A Promised Land was #1 on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. James Dunn, CEO of Barnes & Noble, said that the superstore chain easily sold more than 50,000 copies its first day and hoped to reach 500,000 within 10 days. By comparison, Bill Clinton's My Life sold about 400,000 copies in North America its first day, and George W. Bush Decision Points approximately 220,000 copies, with sales for each memoir currently between 3.5 M and 4 million copies. The fastest-selling book in memory remains J.K. Rowling's seventh and final Harry Potter novel, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, which came out in 2007 and sold more than 8 million copies within 24 hours. Obama's 768-page memoir was released just 2 weeks after Election Day and has already made headlines for its accounts of the former president's time in the White House, key moments in his presidency, such as the fight over the Affordable Care Act and the killing of Osama bin Laden, and his reflections on the rise of Trump. Obama himself acknowledges that he didn't intend for the book, the first of 2 planned volumes, to arrive so close to a presidential election or to take nearly 4 years after he left the White House. In the introduction, dated August 2020, Obama writes that the book kept growing in length and scope as he found more words were needed. He was also working under conditions he didn't fully anticipate, from the pandemic to the Black Lives Matter protest to the most troubling of all, how the country's democracy seems to be teetering to the brink of crisis. Obama has already written 2 acclaimed million-selling works, Dreams from My Father and The Audacity of Hope.
What I hope to accomplish is I want to give an honest reckoning of my time as president, the events and people that shaped those 8 years, and give people some insight into the decision-making process that we went through. I'm also hoping that it gives people some idea of what it's like to be President of the United States and some of the highs and lows that are involved in that. The fact that it's a job and there's an office, even though it's a pretty famous office, and some of the same challenges and joys and frustrations that people experience in any difficult work happen there. I'd like people to get a sense of what Michelle and I as a family with our kids went through in this big transition. Maybe most of all, I want to give young people hopefully some inspiration, some sense of how I as a young man was able to translate a whole bunch of issues that I had into working on things that were larger than myself, and to remind people that our government, our democracy, is not something separate and apart from us, but is something that belongs to us, and that each of us can serve a role to play, whether it's an elective office or as a citizen.